The former jihadi bride, Shamima Begum, is back in the news as her legal team is set to take her case to the Court of Appeal in a bid to get her British citizenship restored. Ms Begum is from Bethnal Green in East London, and in 2015, aged only 15, she made the decision to travel to the ISIS-controlled territory in Syria via Turkey. In 2019, once Ms Begum had escaped from ISIS and wanted to return to the UK, the then Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, took the decision to revoke her citizenship. Earlier this year, the Special Immigration Appeals Commission ruled that her legal defence was not enough to overrule the revocation of her citizenship, and so the appeal is set to take place over the next few days. Well, I'm joined now by Phillip Taylor, a friend of the programme, and Barrister. Phillip, she was a British citizen, and it seems to me that if she committed criminal acts, the place for her to be tried for them is here. She is our responsibility as a nation.
I find this a very interesting approach. I'm a very orthodox person when it comes to looking at the way that we use the rule of law itself. My view is that Miss Begum took her own decision to actually give her rights up when she left and went and supported these horrendous groups. And I don't believe that she should have the right to come back to this country as a result, because she's given it up.
But she hasn't had this taken away from her by a trial. She's had it taken away by the executive. And this is fundamentally against the rule of the law in the UK, that if you're punished for something in this country, it must be by a court in the judgment of your peers. That is one of our most ancient rights.
Well, I do hear that point, but I do believe that there are some occasions where there is an overriding of a particular set of circumstances, and this is one of them, where she actually has taken a decision, which I'm sure many people in this country would agree with me on, which is that she should not come back to this country because she's forfeited her right to British citizenship.
But surely the forfeit should be done by a court. But doesn't it also create two categories of British citizenship? Now, I don't know, were either of your parents born abroad?
No.
Did either of them have foreign citizenship?
No.
So you and I are top-tier British citizens. No court can take away our citizenship at all. We can't be declared outlaws, to use the medieval term. But if you have a parent born overseas, the government can deem you not to be British. Isn't that against everything we've tried to do in terms of ensuring that we have one level of British citizenship in this country that we are all entitled to, and when you've got that British passport, you are as British as the king?
Well, I think that in certain circumstances it has to be taken away, which is what Mr Javid did. And in
fact, it can't be taken away from you. It can only be taken away from the children of migrants who've never lived necessarily, as is the case of Miss Begum, in the country they're then told they've got citizenship
I
of.
hear what you say, but I still believe the orthodox view is that when she does what she's done, she's given up her right. And you will set a very dangerous precedent, I think, if you allow her to come back.
I think this giving up the right is also an extraordinary thing to say about somebody who was 15, who was forcibly married. She's not allowed to buy cigarettes in this country. And yet you're saying that she forfeits all her rights as a British citizen. She's not allowed to vote. She has now, she's over 18, but she wasn't at the time. That's quite a thing to say of somebody who has never had any association with Bangladesh, the country she's deemed to have citizenship of. She was trafficked, she was raped. Yes, she went out voluntarily, but as a 15-year-old. And then she's stripped of her citizenship with no action of a court, and you have created this second tier of citizenship.
You know, you'd make a very fine defence barrister, if I may say so.
Well, very flattering.
Because the point I would make is that you've given a very, very good mitigation plea for her. My concern is a national security concern for this country, and I think it's daft to think about allowing her to come back.
Then if there is a national security concern, she should be prosecuted if she's committed a crime. But allowing the Home Secretary to say, you have committed a crime, therefore you are no longer a citizen, seems to me to be arbitrary law and against the rule of law.
Well, you are getting into the realms of making law, if you like. One of the interesting things about this case is that we do have this wonderful view in English law about dissenting judgments, which we know all about from the Court of Appeal decision with the Lord Chief Justice over Rwanda. Now, what I'm saying is that the view many people hold is a dissenting judgment today is good law tomorrow. So you could well see changes because the law does actually move with the times. Many people say it doesn't, but it does.
It does. You see, I possibly have a very romantic view of British citizenship. I think to be a British citizen is to have the best citizenship of any country in the world. But I think that there is a fundamental equality between all British citizens, and that if you took the oath this afternoon, you are as much as a British citizen as either of us are. And that's fundamental to creating a homogenous British society where people accept that they are part of this great nation. But if you say you're only a full British citizen when you have had parents who were both born here, then you're undermining every effort to create this homogenous British nation.
Well, I find that a very rigid approach, if I may say so. I understand where you're coming from with this, but I'm thinking again about one of the problems we had during World War II, where there are a lot of difficulties concerning people who behaved very badly, supporting the Third Reich and so forth. And we had to look at that very carefully. I believe, because of where we are at the moment, internationally, we've got to be very careful with what we do.
But we locked people up in the UK if we thought they were a threat. I don't object to that. I think that if you have a threat, you are allowed to intern people, as we did during the war, but that you do it internally and you prosecute people in these circumstances, run arbitrary executive action.
Well, the difficulty is you're giving Miss Begum another bite at the cherry. How many bites of the cherry does she want? If she's going to take a decision to say, I don't wish to be part of Britain anymore and I'm going to revoke everything I've done, I don't think she should be given the chance to come back. But I do respect your view concerning her, idea that
she was a 15-year-old girl.
I've got a lot of sympathy. I've got a lot of sympathy.
I have a 14-year-old daughter who is watching, and she's brilliant and much cleverer than I am and knows her own mind extraordinarily well.